Hello everyone. Welcome to my session, Flutter Apps for Everyone. I'm Kamal. I'm a YouTuber and a Google developer expert in Flutter and Dart. Today I have Pooja Baumik also joining me in this session, who'll be talking about Flutter. On to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Kamal. Hey guys, I am Pooja Bhaumik and I'm also a Google developer expert on Flutter and a senior engineer in Pounds. And I'll be joining Kamal in teaching about Flutter for everyone. So back to you, Kamal.
Hey, thanks, Pooja. So today's session is pretty straightforward and to the point, where we would be talking about Flutter from a beginner's point of view, how widgets play a major role in the sphere of Flutter. Also, the first few slides would be about emphasize on the basics of widget and how it plays an integral role in a Flutter's developer's life, where we use Flutter widgets day in and day out. So the next slides would be like, what are the types of widgets? Stateless, stateful, the life cycle, and also the tree structure. Later on, me and Pooja will be demonstrating this awesome mobile version of the TMDB app where we actually discuss as to how to structure a project, create widgets, and also use packages. And not to forget the create custom widgets. Flutter, interesting. So, as I mentioned, Flutter, if you want to really understand Flutter, why this framework and how is it different from other frameworks, or how does Flutter stands out in the market, we need to understand what are its key features. So, I think these are a couple of them which I've listed. Definitely, there's more than this as well. So, first thing is cross-platform. When I say cross-platform, initially we used to have this Android and iOS and develop an app, and we used to have two developers to do the job. But now, since it's cross-platform, all I need is a single code base and I'm able to run the same app to cater to different platform. The next feature is the beautiful UIs or the layered architecture. When I say beautiful, am I talking about the design? Definitely not. I'm talking about the underlying framework, that is the layered architecture that gives you control to access every pixels on the screen. Then moving on to the native access, it is easy to utilize the existing Java, Kotlin, or the Swift code so that you can access all your native features and SDK on Android and iOS. Unified app development. So, are you a developer with no knowledge or a bit of knowledge on mobile development? Definitely, it is easy to develop apps on Flutter with just the basics with programming. Free and open source. As you know that Flutter is known for its open source community and it's free to use. And the latest release was Flutter 1.22, where we had almost 1,900 pull requests with over 197 contributors. So you can imagine the amount of issues getting resolved or open and how many features are getting updated. So if you look at the major releases for 1.22 was targeting on iOS 14 or the button features or the internalization and localization support. And also we had the Google Maps and the WebView plugin ready for the production. Next, we had something called fast development. Now, when I say Flutter is fast, do I have a number for it saying this is really fast? Definitely not. I'm talking when I say fast, it's being powered by the same hardware accelerated Skia 2D graphics, that library that underpins Chrome and Android. And the architecture is architected in such a way that it supports glitch free, jank free graphics at the native speed of your device. And finally, we have a huge widget library and an awesome collection of widgets where it actually saves our time day in and day out because we use widgets all the time. Next, moving on to widgets. So, widgets are, I would say, it is the basic building block while you're developing apps. Or I would say that it is a kind of an immutable declaration of the part of the user interface. That is, whatever you interact on your mobile screen, everything is a widget. You see an image, it's a widget. You see a button, it's a widget. So now in Dart also or in Flutter, we follow this hierarchical composition where widgets are placed one below the other or they follow the picture or the parent-child view. And also the widget are the one that are used to declare your construct UI. And this widget, I would say it's just not a piece of UI. It is a sophisticated component that actually does more than what you can actually see. Layman language, if I have to say what a widget is, I would say it is a blueprint to create your views. Simple as that. So now we have told that, okay, widget is a very integral part of a Flutter developer's life. Now, what are the types of widget? So the first thing that comes is we have stateless widget and we have a stateful widget. So the question next comes, how do I categorize into stateless or a stateful widget? So there are certain properties that if you understand, you would be able to categorize your widgets. So stateless widgets are static in nature. They do not change. So there's nothing dynamic data happening in that, in the widget. Say for example, an icon, an image, there's nothing happening. Whatever you write in the code is what gets displayed. And if you see the stateless widget, all it has a constructor and a build method that returns one or more widgets. Moving on to the stateful widget. Now, when I say a stateful widget, it is mutable and it can be drawn multiple times within its lifetime. So it's dynamic in nature. So when I say dynamic, that means it can keep track of the changes and update the UI based on those changes. So here you do not have a build method, instead you have a create state method. And what does the create state does? It all does is return a state object. So we learned what a widget is. So we know how to categorize a widget. Now let's see what a widget lifecycle is. Very important, because as a developer, people really don't understand what's really happening in the background when you actually create a widget. So these are a couple of terms that you need to understand. But when it comes to a stateful widget, the process is entirely different. So first thing, create state. So whenever you create a stateful object, this particular function is called first. Now, mounted is true. Now, as I mentioned, whenever a stateful widget is created, a create state is called, and then immediately a state object is returned. So when a state object is returned or instantiated, what happens next is a build context is being assigned. So whenever there is a build context assigned, that means the mounted is true. So in case if there is any error, the widget gets unmounted. Next, moving on to init state. It's the first method that's called when a widget is created. And it's called only once, something to be noted down. So if there is something that's called only once, then I can use that for initializing data, properties, or subscribing streams or change notifier that could change the data on this widget. The next one is did change dependency. Now, did change dependency is a method called immediately after init state on the first time the widget is built. And the next one is the build. It's something very important which we use as soon as we create a widget, you would see this method. And this is nothing but just to return a widget. And then we have something called did update widget. This one actually is being called whenever you have any kind of widget configuration updates or changes happening. And then we have set state, very important. The set state is actually, it is used to notify the framework. Which framework? The Flutter framework, that a data has been changed and now we need to rebuild this widget. Very important. That is how we actually rebuild widgets. And then we have something called dispose. Dispose is nothing but whenever the state object is being removed from the tree or permanently, this method is called. And then mounted. Mounted is basically to tell if the widget is available or not. So you can use this for certain types of debugging and check mounted and then check for its availability. So as I mentioned, for a stateful widget, this is the flow. So we know few concept about the init state, set state, did update config, but in a stateful widget, this is how the flow goes. So you have the init state and the build and then the dispose. So when something gets built and there is a set state assigned to it, it comes back again and rebuilds it and did update config as well. So this is pretty much simple if you already know what are the states available in a widget lifecycle. All right, so we know what a widget is, we know how to categorize the widget, we have also seen the lifecycle of a widget. But now let's see what is this widget tree, elementary render object. This actually gets a little more deeper as we try to create widgets. So first thing, we have something called widget tree. So widget tree is nothing but whatever widgets that you create, whether it could be an icon or an image, it gives an instructions to create the UI, right? Now this collection of these widgets are called as, and then the Flutter framework uses this widget as the reference or a configuration and then renders it or mounts it on the screen. That's your element tree. So we have a widget tree, we have an element tree. To say it very simple, widget tree is kind of a widget configuration, and elementary is kind of representing your rendered widgets on the screen. A simple example where I'm actually going to demonstrate how a widget tree, elementary, and the render object looks like. So if you look at this code, I have a simple variable called display text with a text hello, and then I have a build method with a center, a flat button. So that means I'm centering this flat button, and on press, I'm actually changing the set state of the display text from hello to hoy, and that child is the text which changes the text. So this looks pretty straightforward, right? But if you look in the background, this is how it looks like. We have a center, we have a center, and then we have a flat button, we have a text. So these all are widgets. So when in the background, the element tree looks like this, stateless. And then we have the render object. So as I mentioned, the Flutter will create the widget tree from all the widget used above. So all the widgets, you get a widget tree. Now for each widget in the tree, Flutter will create an element using the create element method on the widget. And then this is how the element tree is created. Then after the element tree is done, Flutter will create the render object, corresponding render object by calling the create render object on the widget. I press the flat button, immediately the text changes from hello to hoy, right? In case if there is something changing, then what happens is that it'll change the text property and a new widget will get created. In case if there's nothing happening, both your elementary and your render object will remain the same, and just your update render object will get called, saving a lot of time. So I think I have dealt with the basics of widgets and a lot of other details. Now Pooja will be also talking about few more concepts about the basics widget and walk you through the TMDB app. On to you, Pooja.
Thank you, Kamal. So, thank you everyone for listening to that. We explained a lot about how it works behind the scenes. But to start coding today, you will have to know what are the widgets that you need to start with. There are some basic widgets that you need to know before you can start an application or a UI design or any of that sort. And I actually had created a great repository where this was kind of like a widget playground where you could learn about the widgets and its properties. At this point we have the basic widget Flutter basic widgets repository, and you can see there are multiple examples for app bars, how app bars look. Okay, you have a background color, you have a title, you can give the elevation which is like the shadow, and then you have the app bar which comes with a text and an icon. Here as you can see the actions where you have the search icon. So here you see the search icon right at the end of the app bar. If you want to change the icon at the beginning of the app bar, that is the leading property. So there is so much to play around in this repository. And of course, it also comes with a link to Dartpad. I'm guessing you know, or maybe you don't know, that you can even run Dart and Flutter in your browser via Dartpad. So you can actually go to the links that are mentioned in each of this category and start playing around with these widgets. So the widgets that are very important for you are the container. So definitely container is one that can give you an image property, a decoration property like the rounded edges, and so much more. And then you have the column and row. Now this is a very important widget because there is a high chance that you can do most of your widgets, like around 50% of your UI in just rows and column and like these basic widgets. So what are columns and what are rows? So if you have any elements that are placed one after another in the vertical manner, then it's a column. And if you have elements placed one after another in the horizontal axis, then it's a row. So here you can see that we have three text children who are placed one after another, and I have wrapped them in a column. So I can do the same thing with row, and they will be placed one after another in the horizontal axis. So this is pretty important. So definitely go to this GitHub repository and start playing around with these widgets. We can move on to the next part where we are creating the TMDB website. So we are building the TMDB website, and this will be divided into three parts. Where the first part is going to be, which I cover, which is mostly the app bar and banner, and the trending and trailer section, and how can you create your list in Flutter, and how do you use an external packages in Flutter. And then we move to the second part, which Kamal will be taking in the next segment, which is the leaderboard section and the footer section. And the third part is a simple topic on navigation and how do we even implement that. The first part, let's begin right now. So here we have the TMDB app that this is already made in Flutter, and this is the final result that you will have. Let's see what are the actual components that this actually has. Like I can see the first part is the app bar. So we can call it the TMDB app bar. And the second part is the top banner search card, which is the text and the edit text that you see there. And then you have the second one with third one, which is the trending section, and the fourth one, which is the trailer section. So these four parts is what I'm going to be covering right now, and the rest Kamal would be covering. So moving on to the first part, which is the TMDB app bar. I just showed you how app bars are created. So here you can see that we are actually going to create a widget. So I'm going to be moving to my editor and show you how do we actually create widgets in Flutter. So this is my Android Studio. And before we even move how we can create widgets, there you can see that there is this function called void main. If you are coming from C, C++, I'm pretty sure you have heard of this before. So this is our Dart's entry point. So Dart's entry point, so here you have the run app method, which says that, hey, this is going to be my launcher screen. So my app is my launcher screen. And I am going to be returning a material application here. So this is, by the way, also a widget. Here you can see this is a widget. This comes with the SDK. So if you want to create a material application, material app. If you want to create a Cupertino application, Cupertino app. So here you have material app, which takes simple title and it takes the theme of your app and your launcher screen, which is the home screen that I just showed you in the slides, which is the home screen. So here, let's see how the home screen was actually created. So I will first import it. I will import material here, which comes again with the SDK. And then I will do STL, which is just a shortcut to create a stateless widget. So here, and then I will write it as home screen. And here your boilerplate code is already created, which comes with the build method and it returns something. Here I will be returning scaffold, sorry about that, scaffold, and let's see what are scaffold. So here as you see, scaffold is also another widget that comes with the SDK. So it actually gives you all the material design elements that should be part of a material app, like an app bar, a floating action button, a drawer, and even a body, which is everything in between. You can use it like this. App bar takes an app bar. This is a widget that is part of the SDK. Drawer takes a drawer. Sorry, drawer takes a drawer here. So that's also part of the widget. Here you can see that these are all elements that are part of the SDK and you can use it right away. At this point, we have the home screen created and it's a stateless widget. We discussed that there is going to be a build method that returns a scaffold, which is fine. And now we need a app bar. So yeah, this is a custom widget. It is not part of the like SDK. Now you must be thinking that, oh my God, even after all the list of widgets that Flutter provides, there is a chance that we can also create the similar type of custom widgets for ourselves. I mean, that would be great. So let's see how the custom app bar was created, which is, of course, here you have the custom app bar, which takes a row. Why a row? Because it is placed one after another in the horizontal axis. So the first part, which is just an image, logo image, and the second part is just an icon button. So here, this is how the custom app bar would look like. Now, moving on to the next part of the screen, which is the top banner search card, the trending section, and the trailer section. If you can see here, all are going to be widgets. So here, top trending section is also a widget. Trailer section is also going to be a widget. So all of these are 5 custom widgets that we have created. And let's see the elements here. Do you realize that these elements are actually placed one after another in the vertical axis? That means this is a column. So we are going to create a column, and all these widgets are the part of this column. At this point, you can see the first part. Let's just start with the first part here, which is the top banner search card, which again is a widget, returns an empty container at this point. And then we see what we can do here. Here we saw that in the previous slide, text and second text and then edit text. So there it is placed one after another in the vertical axis. That means we need to use a column. But the only thing different here is that there is an image behind it. So I actually see that there is two components here, which is the first component, which is the image part, and the second component, which is the column of text and edit text. So here, when both of them come on top of each other, if there are an image and text comes on top of each other, it is going to be a stack widget. So we are going to be using a stack widget, which is again provided by the SDK. So here you see that we are going to return a stack instead of a container and give it children. So the first child is going to be the top banner background, which is just the image, that the blue image that you just saw. And then the second part, the first part, which is the image, and the second part is going to be the container that takes the banner text, which is the text, subtext, and the edit text in a column. Here, if you can see, I'll just show you the column here, which is the welcome, the second text, and the edit text, which if you are going to use in one after another in a vertical manner, then it's obviously a column widget. Here, a column that takes a children of text, text, and text field. Now, if we actually run this as it is, like just a column and children, this is how it will look, where you have the welcome in the center, the text like taking the space, and edit text is fine. But if you are not noticing it here, even the entire component of text, text, and edit text, these are actually not vertically center aligned. And here you can see that there is something called a main axis alignment, which takes a center property. What happened here is that here this was the previous one, and here this is the second one, where it says that, hey, can you just center align me on the main axis? And now you would be thinking, what is the main axis for a column? Of course, column is placed in a vertical manner. So the main axis is going to be vertical. So here, as you see, this is the main axis. And when you say that I want to center align my main axis, it is going to be the vertical axis. Now, another problem here is that the welcome is center aligned in the horizontal axis. I want it to be on the left side, right? Like that's how the design is. So now that means I need to change this widgets and the alignment of it in the horizontal axis. So that means there is something called a cross axis alignment, which is basically opposite of your main axis. So now if you are using a row, row's main axis is horizontal, but row's cross axis will be vertical. So don't get confused here. Just know what is the what is the axis as the children are following, and cross axis is just the opposite of it. So don't get confused about that. So now when I say cross axis alignment is to the start, that means move all the widgets to the start of the horizontal axis for a column. So you see the welcome is now moved into the left side of the column. And now we're going to move into the trending and trailer section. So here the trending and trailer section is looking just like this, where you have a bunch of cards which are lined in a list view, but they are scrolled horizontally and not vertically. Okay, so we have, like, there are similarities here where you can see that the cards actually have some properties which is similar, which is like a rounded edge, and they have an image, and it is just having a similar height. So there's a lot of things that we can do similarly. We don't have to create one trending card and one trailer card and just make our lives harder. We can actually create one widget here and reuse it in both trailer and trending section with some difference in the properties, like these, which is the aspect ratio of the card, the height of the card, like it's much more in trending but lesser in trailer, and the image URL obviously differs in all of these cards. Of course, there are extra components, like you see in the trailer, there is a play icon on top of the card, which is kind of like a stack of elements. So there's that small differences only in that particular, in these two cards, but we can still create one widget for it and just give some differences depending on which section is using this card. So here you can see that we can create a movie card item widget. And this is how it is going to be looking like, where you are going to take a double aspect ratio, a double of height, a widget which is the stack child, which is like any of the children that you want to put on top of your card, which in our case was the play icon. And of course, the image URL actually differs for each of the card. So here you see that we will obviously have to create a list of movie card items. So in an easy way manner, lists are nothing but a column, but it's scrollable. Like columns cannot be scrollable outside of the device height, but lists will scroll to any infinite height. But so here you can see that list has children, which could be movie card item three times, suppose. And then you can also give it a scroll direction, which would be the axis. Here we want the scroll direction to be on the horizontal side. So obviously, we're going to change the scroll direction to axis.horizontal. But this is not a good way to do this when you are having list of dynamic size. You don't know how much your movie items are going to be like. So you need to use this, change this list view into a list view dot builder, which of course takes a scroll direction, and also it takes a item count, which would be the list of movie items. So if in your case it can come from an API, it could be 30, 50, 150, I don't know. And here of course you need to have an item builder, which is going to create and populate your movie card item x number of times, and x is your item count. So here you can see that movie card item is just taking an image URL for now, and it's going to be populating it tailor list dot size number of times. This is how it will look like, but it also has some more properties, which is the text and the subtext. So movie card item, text and subtext, which is again, it looks like it's a column. So why don't we actually create a item builder, give an item builder a column of widgets where movie card item is one part of it. So here you can see that it will be a column which takes a movie card item, a text, and a text part, where we actually don't have so much of data because we don't have APIs ready at this point, and we need to give a data to each of these cards so that they can have this text and subtext populated. But I can't really hard code it one by one. That's going to be a long time. There are ways you can actually create a model which we can get to it later, but there's an easier way where you can actually create a fake data generator tool which is provided by pub.dev. This is the place where you can get external libraries. So here you have like I can get Faker, which is a tool created by a community member, and it generates fake data. So here you can see that you can generate fake internet email IDs, person names, like conference names, or any other type of fake data that you would require for your dummy application. And here you can see there is an installing, and it's going to take a faker here. This is the latest version that you need to add to your pubspec.yaml file. You are going to be calling the Flutter pub get, and at this point all the resources for faker is going to be generated for your local project, and you can use it right away. How can you use it? So this external library just gives you a very easy way to use it. Just have a create an object of faker, import the file that it needs from your library, and then use it right away like this, like faker.person.first name, or like have other things like faker.lordum.words, where you need some random words for of x number, x count. So just you can use so many things here in your faker, with your faker library. So this will look something like this, where the text now gets populated with faker.person.first name instead of a hard coded string. So this is a great way of using a library that you want to enhance your project with. And now we come to part two, which is going to be taken by Kamal. Let's move on to Kamal's segment where she talks about leaderboard and the footer.
Hey, thanks, Pooja. Definitely, that was an informative session for me as well. So, so let's see what we have. So, as Pooja mentioned, she took care of the app bar and then the banner and the trending and the trailer section. So, what is left over in the app? We have something called the leaderboard section and the footer. So, let's take it step by step. So if you look at the section that I'm going to cover, you would see a leaderboard, which is details of few leaders, and then the footer. Working on a project, it is very important to visualize the structure. So whatever we've been talking about, the app bar, trailing, and trending section, if you look at the skeleton of it, this is how your app looks like in the home page. So it has an app bar, it has a banner, it has a trailer and trending section, which has already been covered. So we have the leader and the footer. If I have to look at the project structure in terms of code, I would have the app with the lib folder, and it's always good to have your screens or widget inside folders. So if you look at the model screens, it could be home screen, it could be main screen, it could be login screens, and then we have the widget, where inside the widget I have another folder called leaderboard, where I would be dealing with all the leaderboard details, because you're not the only person who would be working on a project. You would have multiple people working, so it's always good to have a very structured clean code. And here in the editor you can see the main.dart screen. So we have properties like title, theme, visual density. Now what does this visual density does? It's nothing but it specifies the density of your platform or your material components. Say, for example, you have a button and you want some spacing to be added, or if it is like a list view with some axis, baseline axis you want to add, we use this visual density. Now, moving back to the slides, so we can see that we have a leaderboard section and we have a footer. So if I have to visualize this, all I can see is a single child scroll view so that I can scroll it, and it's placed one below the other. So the leaderboard title and then the footerboard title. So I can think of as a column widget, where Pooja gave an awesome explanation as to how a column widget fits in here. We'll go back to the editor and see how this works. So if you see here, we have a single child scroll view, and inside that I have a column widget with these two widgets, which is the leaderboard title and the footerboard title. Back to the slides. Now basically what I'm doing is I'm trying to break down the views. So first we had the overall view. Now we have if you zoom in, we have the more specific leader view board. So if I have to think about this leader view board, I can think of this as this is one column and this is another column. So all these are custom widgets, like the leader header title is this section, and then the leader details titles is this section. So let's focus on the leader header title section. Back to the editor. So let's go with the leaderboard title. So if I look at the leaderboard title, let me format it so that I get a better view of it. Okay. So if I go to the leaderboard title, again, I have three sections. So I have a title, I have a spacing, and then the details title. So it's always good to have your code partitioned and not fit everything in one place and making it really clumsy. So first, let's go to the leader header title, as I mentioned. So the leader title contains a text, which is the leader, and then you have edit tile and another edit tile. So back to the slides. So if you look at this section, I see that there is a text in between two text. So we have an exclusive widget called list tile, which actually helps us and it is really handy to use it. So I have a property called leading and I can add the title leading here, and the title is this text, which is all the edits. And there is another text called subtitle or another parameter called subtitle, and that's where I add this text. So back to the editor. As I mentioned, I have a text that is the leading, and then I have a title and a subtitle. Now, if you look at this, these both widgets are same in property wise. There are only a few parameters which changes. One is the text and one is this colors. So instead of writing the same code again and again and making a kind of duplication, I would go for a custom widget. So that's what I've created here called edit tile, and I've passed those changing attributes as the parameter. Now, what are those changing attribute? As I said, it's a primary color, secondary color, because it's got this gradient circle icon and then a text. Now, how do I create that gradient icon, the circle icon? That's possible with the help of box decoration. So let's get back to the slide. So you see this round colored icons. How do I get it? And it's just not a single color, it's a multicolor. So this is possible with a property called box decoration and the box shaped circle and the linear gradient. And the color, usually whenever you specify color, you just give one color. But in this case, since we have a gradient effect, I'm going to give two colors. So this way I can create a numerous number of round circled gradient icons just by using this particular widget. And the begin and end show how your gradient varies. Do you want the circle gradient? Do you want a kind of the gradient on the primary color more and less on the secondary color? So those kind of adjustments can be done with the help of alignment. So this way we were able to achieve this particular section of the app. Next, we have something called the model class. So it's very important to have a model class because when you're communicating with the real-time data, you're not going to get data just like that. So it's always good to have a model class. So in this case, what I've done is this is my leaderboard and I have data which actually has image, total detail, and there is a percent. Now, as Pooja mentioned, there was something called faker data. If it's just a name, address, or just some city, I can use those. But these seems to be a little more customized ones, so definitely that's not going to work for me. So in this case, what I've done is I've used a dummy data at the moment, and I'll show you how I've used it. So for that, I have created a model class. Switching on to the editor. So I have a model class and I have created something called rating. And you can see the same parameters mentioned here. And I've created a dummy list which holds all these values. So it's just the image and the values that you see in one corner of the project. And I'm using this dummy data or the list throughout my project. So I don't have to keep on adding those static data everywhere in the app. So now we have this grid structure, we have the data. Now we have to display those data inside this structure. How do I do it? So what I used was I used an ignore pointer and then a grid view. I tell you why I used a grid view. If it's a mobile view, I can just display one column. But as and when I extend this into a web app, then definitely I cannot display one column. I have to go with more than one column. So in those cases, we need a grid view with a cross-axis count, where the count as of now is just one. But if it's expanding, then I would add two or three. That's how you can achieve that table kind of view. And then I have something called child aspect ratio, which is basically the width and height of the cell, and the axis spacing, which is the spacing between each cell. And there's something called shrink wrap equals true or false. It's a Boolean parameter. So when I say shrink wrap is true, what I mean is, say in a list view, you have a lot of items. Now, I want few items to display it, and as and when the list view grows, I want it to be a scrollable one. To get that happening, we use shrink wrap. And ignore pointer, basically what it does is, say for example, you have a particular section of your app which users basically try to fiddle with it. When they do that, they don't want any kind of interactions happening. To disable that kind of interactions, we place this entire widget inside ignore pointer so that we don't have any scrolling or any kind of interactions happening. So I'm going to switch to the editor and show you how this looks. So as I mentioned, we have a ignore pointer grid view, and I've given a cross axis of 1. As I mentioned, I just want one column, and then a child aspect ratio shrink wrap true. So if you look at the details of what my tile looks like, it's all nothing but a circle avatar with an image and some text. So I'm just going to show you how this indicator looks like, because I have used a custom widget again for rating widget. So switching back to the slides. So let's take one section at a time. So as I mentioned, now if I look at this, I can see that it is a kind of a row with the circle avatar and the details of the leader. So that's the row. So row with the circle avatar and then the leader details. So the leader detail also has the leader name, the first percent indicator, the second percent indicator, and their corresponding values. Now, what can I think of it? Something displayed one below the other? Definitely a column widget. So what I did was I displayed a column widget and displayed a leader detail and a rating widget. So this is how you use row and column widgets efficiently. Then moving on to the rate widget. Now again, we are zooming in and taking each section by section. So this is how you deal or write code. So if you look at this, again, these two tiles are like column based. They are not row. They are not one next to other. In fact, they're one below the other. So let's put it one below the other, and it's a linear percent indicator. So switching back to the editor, let's see how this rating widget looks like. So as I mentioned, I told you that I'm using a package, and the package is called as a percent indicator. And that comes with a predefined method called linear percent indicator with the width, animation duration. So when I run the final app on the emulator, you would see a slight animation attached to the percent indicator. And then there's just the values and the gradient, because my percent indicator has two colors. So for that, I've again used this linear gradient property and added it. If it was just a single color, then I could have just gone with one color and not an array of color. Switching back to the slides. So as I mentioned, this is the indicator that I've used. Please do try it. And you can see they've used just one color, and I have used a multicolor, and you also have a circular indicator as well. So it totally depends on your project usage, and you can use them. So if you look at it, this is how the final product of a leaderboard looks like. Then coming to the last section, which is the footer. Since you've already learned what a row, how a column widget is used, and how to create custom widget, this should just be a piece of cake. So if I visualize this footer, all I see is an image and a couple of social icons. So, and it is placed one next to other. So what I can think of is a container holding a row widget where the first one is the image and the second one is the social icon widget. Now, when I say social icon widget, it's my own naming convention and it's a custom widget. It's not a predefined widget. So this is the structure. So first you get your structure right, and then you can start working on things. Coming to the social icon widgets, it has a round icon with an icon image inside it. And when I click on this, it should take me to that corresponding social media page. So what I can think of is an inkwell, a material, a shape which is circular, and inside that a child icon. So what is an inkwell? Inkwell is nothing but a rectangular area and makes it susceptible to touch events. That's what inkwell is all about. Go to the editor and show you how this looks. So I have separated the footer part inside the footer folder, as I mentioned. So you have the leaderboard part and all the leaderboard details, and here you have the footer section. So first we have the footer board title. So as I mentioned, with an image and social icons. Now instead of writing the entire social icons here, all I did was added the changing parameter, which is the GitHub, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and created a custom widget. Now, if I look into this custom widget, how it is defined is an inkwell, a circle border with a padding and an icon. And the size of the icon is 20. So that's it. So when I run this, this is what I get. So I get the leaderboard, which is kind of a single child scroll view, and I get these social icons. Just to show you that how my code and my emulator is connected, I'm just going to do a reload, and there you go. You see that difference? So this is how hot reload is one of the amazing features of Flutter, which is really handy to get your results or your changes instantly on your emulator. Back to the slides. So we have covered about the social icon widget, and this looks like the final product of the TMDB movie database app, where it contains both the leaderboard and the footer section. And that was the end of the part two section. And now we have the part three, where Pooja would be talking about the navigation in detail. And yeah, on to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much, Kamal, for teaching about the leaderboard and the footer sections to our viewers. And next to this part three of the segment, which is the navigation concepts and how do we implement that in Flutter. So obviously, we are not just going to be creating one screen where we have the trailers and trending parts. We need to navigate to the next part, which is the details section or whatever. I'm not really going to create the details UI for you because you can put it, you can take it that as a homework, whatever. But I am going to be showing you how we actually navigate in Flutter. Navigators are basically a simple widget that maintains a stack of routes, or in simpler terms, it's a history of visited screens or pages. So basically, in our case, we have a stack which has the home screen first in the stack, and then we are going to be pushing the detailed screen on top of it. So that means the stack will now have the home screen and then the detailed screen, and that is how we actually navigate to the next screen. So whatever is on top of the stack is on top of your screen. That is the visible screen or widget that you see in your app. Now at this point, okay, I have seen the details of my movie. Now I want to go back to home screen to select some other movie. That means I need to pop that detailed screen out of the stack. This is basic data structures where you actually learn about stacks, where you push an element and you pop an element. So you are going to be popping the detailed screen from your stack, and you are going to pop also the home screen, suppose, and your app is going to get closed. So because you only had home screen at your stack, once you pop the home screen as well, your app will close itself. So there is nothing to show to the users anymore. Final thing is that if you want to know more about navigation, which is suppose like push and pop, is a very a simple thing here, and that is not basically what you're going to always have in your complex projects. There could be situations where you have a login screen and then you have your home screen. So when you're logged in, you are not going to be pushing a new route into your stack, which is the home screen, because that means if you go back, you are able to go back to your login screen. That is definitely wrong. Here, you might want to replace your route and completely get rid of that login widget completely from your stack. Or maybe in a case where you have too many elements in your stack and then you did log out, that means you need to completely get rid of all the widgets that are there in the stack because you logged out. You should not be able to go back and then go to the previous widget. So there are so many use cases that you can actually do, and that is where I had actually written an article on navigation and all the usages that you might find in all your apps, and I had put that out in a Medium article. So here you see, this is the Flutter push article. Even today I actually use this as a reference even when I forget things. So there you can learn about how you can actually navigate, but there are also other scenarios where you can actually have like a use case where you want to push the named and remove until a particular widget, or there are other things where you want to pop until a particular widget. There are so many things you can do with navigation here. Definitely do read this out and you will be understanding navigation much better. Now we have ended our TMDB app, we have done UI, we did navigation. You still need to come tomorrow to understand how we can actually create APIs and add it to our TeamDB app that we just created and how it will look in Flutter Web. If that is also part of the agenda for tomorrow. Thank you so much, the audience. This is the end right now. We have like taught you a lot of things today. Hopefully, you learned something after today. And these are the social media links for both Kamal and me. So if you want have or you have some questions, definitely do reach out to us, and hopefully we'll see you in some other event as well. So thank you so much.